Welcome, everyone. Good evening. It is evening, at least on the West Coast here. It's evening in the East Coast, too. So, unless maybe you're in Hawaii. I'm Mama Rita, and it's time to feel good about money. And I am so excited to be able to come to you with this Showtime piece because I think it really is about time that we feel good about money. I think that there have been so many negative stories and negative words and negative thoughts around money that it creates an environment where I think it can be difficult for people to flourish. Many of us did not have an education around money, and we could be waiting around for the schools, or we could have hoped our parents would have taught us. But, when I ask myself, who was going to do that? When were they going to do that? Did I want to wait? Did I want to stick around and hang out until someone else did it? The answer for me was no. And I really wanted to find a way where we could enjoy ourselves and have fun. Well, what better way to enjoy it than by doing it in community? Women speaking to women, having fun, creating groups, and just having common conversations. Forget about that taboo talk of money, right? I mean, today we still find that we can talk about politics, sex, and religion even more than money. And why is that? If we ask ourselves that question, what is it? It's a history that we have with the words and the thoughts and the stories that maybe others are telling us or that we're telling ourselves. So what better way than to break through by having better conversations around money? So I decided, since it's time to feel good about money, and I want to share it with my amazing circle of friends and I say major, impact influencers that I can share with you, because it's all about that abundance and sharing. Why not put that together and get on a media spectrum that would share that abroad, so that this way we can create that connection. And today I have a really, really special guest, Dr. Lois Frankel, an amazing woman with many, many accolades. And really what she has been doing is spreading that message. I know that when I met Dr. Frankel, that she and I resonated on so many points in this, and she had written so many books. One of my favorites is Nice Girls Don't Get Rich. And that book resonated with me because I grew up and I was teased, I'm going to say a lot, mercilessly, for being the nice girl. And that connotation made it like that I always had to be polite, that I couldn't speak up, that I couldn't stand out. It was, it's those stories where, I'm in a room and I'm asking questions around money and I'm being shushed, or I'm being told it's not appropriate. And I couldn't figure out why, because I was just curious and I wanted to explore and I wanted to learn. And my thought was, if I can't get my questions answered, then how can I learn? And if I can't speak up because I have to be a nice girl, then I'm really backed into a corner. So Lois has really created amazing multiple books that touch on all these areas that I'm talking about, which is super amazing. I'm going to say, we always have these leaders that lead us through. They got to the other side of the landmines before us, and then they're leading us through the safe path that got them to the other side. And that is priceless. So I want to share a little bit about Lois. And I've known her for a few years now. Not only did she write Nice Girls Don't Get Rich, she wrote Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. She has a lot of accolades. She has been on the Larry King Live Show, the Today Show, 2020, on People Magazine, Wall Street Journal, US Today. I could go on and on and on. But her latest Audible book, which I love because, it's the tone. A lot of us in this current day and age, we're texting, we're emailing, we're not hearing inflections of the things that we say, what might be interpreted of what we're saying. So it's super exciting that she has, I'm going to say, done it again for us to lead us and get us through so that we can have our voices heard, our points known, and our presence felt. I know that these keys have been leading me. And Lois has worked with corporate giants like Microsoft and the Walt Disney Company, and she works with women. And we'll find out a little bit more why specifically women. And, she's been working on the county commission of Women's Women of the Year Award and women who empower women through education. So that this way, I say we can all level up, right? Level up, unlimited possibilities. That's what UP stands for. Level, unlimited possibilities. And Lois has been leading the way. So Lois, I really want to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to come out and join us about feeling good about money. And I wanted to have you start by sharing a little bit with us, because I think that when we do, and you and I talk about this, vulnerabilities and points of our lives that have impacted us. And so if you would be willing to share with us some of those key points in your life that led you to, I'm going to say writing each of your books, but more specifically about the nice girls that don't speak up and stand out. So welcome, Lois. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I think what you're doing is really important because, yes, women do need to understand and learn more about money and not be afraid of it. And to say, you know what, I can acquire this too. And I think you need to do it early in your life, and I hope you do it earlier than I did. I worked for many years for the oil company Arco, and I was making a good salary, and it had a lot of prestige. It was big in the community, and I had a good job, a lot of friends, and the only problem was I wasn't happy there. I could not see myself working there for the rest of my life, even though it was a great company. Couldn't see myself working there for the rest of my life. So I went back to school. I got my PhD in counseling psychology. It took me 5 years at night. I went to USC at night. I was working at Arco during the day. And when I got it, I went to the powers that be and I said, you've paid all this money for my PhD. Now what I want to do is I want to use it in the employee assistance program. And they told me, you're doing a great job where you are. Just stay there. And I thought, you know what? I didn't work that hard and that long to just stay where I was. Mm-hmm. So I actually quit my job. And I quit my job to open up a private practice of psychotherapy. And I got zero support. My mother said, it makes my stomach turn thinking of you as unemployed. Now, I have 2 brothers that were both self-employed, but I was going to be unemployed because I was working for myself. I had friends that said, I can't believe you did this. What are you doing? I really had no support, but you know what? It was important for me to do it. And I had a mantra, and my mantra was, failure is not an option. And over, I told myself, failure is not an option until I finally really believed it. And so I started my practice. And at one point I had to take a second out on my house because, you know what? Fact is when you're building a business, you don't always have the amount of money saved up that you think you should have had. And so I took a second out of my house. And at that point I realized, you know what? I don't really want to be a therapist, but I don't know what else I'm going to do. And someone came to me and said, Lois, would you be willing to coach someone? And you have to remember, this was 30 years ago. There were no business coaches 30 years ago, or there are very few. And I said, I don't know what it is, but I'll give it a try. And that really changed my life, Rita. That was one of those pivotal, life-changing moments. So that was actually 2 moments. One was quitting my job and realizing, well, wait a minute, what did I do here? And then the other one was having someone come up to me and ask me to do something I'd never done, but said, I'll give it a try. And the reason why it was life-changing was because all of a sudden, I realized I could put together my experience working at Arco, my education as a therapist, my experiences working as a trainer. Because when I said to the woman, well, what does a trainer do? She said, well, Lois, you've been a therapist, you've been a trainer, you've worked in human resources, you just put it all together, you have a coach. Now, it wasn't quite that easy, but the fact is that she was right. And so that's another tip that I have for women is a lot of times we don't try new things if we're not familiar with it or not sure we could do it, 100% right the first time. We really need to get out of our comfort zones, and that's really where the sweet spot is. I think once you get out of your comfort zone, and so that was a thing. And then, at some point during all this, Rita, I realized I'm never going to get rich just being a sole practitioner as a coach because I can only earn as much as I can bring in a week, and you can't work 40 hours a week.
Right.
You've got to do some business planning, you got to do paperwork, administrative, all that stuff. So that's when I realized, you know what, I could make money off of other people. So it's when I started Corporate Coaching International and I brought together a group of coaches. And I said, okay, I would like you to come and work for me. And what I'll do is I'll send you out on coaching engagements and you'll get 60% of what comes in and I'll get 40%. And this model worked great. It worked just great. They were all subcontractors, so I didn't have the overhead, but I had the cash flow. So that really made a huge difference too, really recognizing that you're probably not going to get rich if you're earning some kind of an hourly income, even if it's a good hourly income like I was making doing coaching. You need to have some passive income too. And then the last thing that really changed my life was when I took a workshop. And in that workshop, they said, you have to, if you're a small business owner or you're an entrepreneur, you have to pay in advance for capacity. And I had no idea what that meant. But pay in advance for capacity means you need to put the money out when you can least afford it to be able to create the infrastructure that will help you build your business. So it came to me one day when I was sitting listening to a client, and what was going through my head was, oh man, when I get back to the office, I got to do this, I got to do that. I probably have another 5 hours worth of work, when I get back at 5 o'clock. And I thought, this is no way to do business. I need to hire someone. I need to hire someone who's going to be my right hand, or in my case, my left hand, since I'm left-handed. And I did. And it was when I could least afford it, but it made the biggest difference. Because the fact is that once I got the right person in place, I was able to go out and do more marketing. I was able to go out and do more coaching. I wasn't having to spend a certain amount of time in the office, do the paperwork. So those were some pivotal points on my path to wealth.
Awesome.
I hope I answered your question.
You did. You did. You know what? And there's just so much. I actually, I'm a note taker. So I'm like, okay, so there's key points. So, when there's nuggets, write them down, and one of the things is, you were talking about the steps that you took. And I'm going to say kind of like stretching yourself and growing. You have your mantra. I was going to say, what were those steps do you think that gave you the most courage? What kind of lit that fire for you what do you think that was, that one key thing?
That lit the fire to keep going?
To keep going.
I had two signs in my office for 30 years, two signs. The first one was, no guts, no glory. And it was a little tiny knight that was fighting a huge dinosaur. And that was something I had to remind myself, that if I don't take big chances, I'm not going to get big rewards, right? If we only take baby steps, sometimes we have to take baby steps, but it's not my style in particular. So, that was one of them. And then the second sign I had in my office that came a little bit later was, leap and the net will appear. That I had a fundamental belief that if I did all the right things and took all the right steps, that things would work out. I remember when a friend of mine sent me the video, The Secret, and I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Sure.
And in The Secret, the secret is essentially you get what you vision and you get what you put out, and right. But
Hmm.
when I saw the video, I thought, this is what I've been doing my whole life. I have been visioning what I want with a lot of clarity and then putting together all the plans that were necessary to make it happen. Now, how can you not keep going when that's the situation? And I'm also someone, I had a mother who was, she was fearless, she was relentless, and she was perseverant. And so, I just always had her in my head as, you know, I could do this.
That's awesome. You know what? Having amazing role models is so super important. Stepping in, and even in your book, I remember hearing about, borrowing somebody else's confidence, right? So
Mhm.
that's kind of what we're doing is, if that person can do it, I can do it. Being inspired, having supporting materials that we listen to, having connections and groups and getting connected, just like how we did. Someone met each of us and then introduced the two of us because she saw the alignment. And I'm going to say
Yes.
that divine organic intervention, because you're attracting, like in The
Mhm.
Secret, you're attracting what you see or what you want to see in the world. And I'm going to say it's been the very same for me. It hasn't always been easy because my driver has been that I really want to help other women to be able to do the same. I too had a mama that was resilient. So I don't think that we ever talked about that one piece. That we also, my mom is super resilient woman and has gone through many trials and just always had a mindset of, tomorrow will always be better. And so we just need to show up for
Mhm.
tomorrow. So I really, really love that. If you could tell the audience one message, what would that main message be for them that you would like to convey today to them?
Yeah, I think the main message in all of my books and my lectures and workshops is that no one is ever going to take better care of you than you're going to take care of yourself, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
a lot of time, and I'm sure people have seen, there's a saying about, a man is not a financial plan, right? And,
Right.
and I think too many women in particular wait. They wait to buy a house until they're married. They wait to get serious about saving and acquiring wealth until they're older or they're married or they have kids. Sometimes they don't even want to be married, but they want to have kids and they wait. And I think it's important to understand at a very young age that, and to teach your daughters this as well, that you will be the best person to take care of you. No one will do it better than you will do it. Yes, there may be some people along the line that may help you, but even in those cases, you have to be responsible for your own well-being and your own wealth. And as I talk about in Nice Girls Don't Get Rich, when I talk about wealth and acquiring wealth and being wealthy, I'm just talking about having all the money you need to live your life the way you want, free from concerns about money. That's
Yes.
all, right?
Yes.
If you're worrying about money, then you're not living a full life,
That's
right?
right.
Because your energy is going into worrying about money. And so for some people, they may need millions of dollars to live the lives they want. Some people may need 100,000 or 500,000. But you probably know better than I do what the average American has in the bank. I mean, I think it's less than $10,000.
Yeah.
And you cannot live a rich life with $10,000 in the bank. I will tell you that right now because things happen, right?
Like, absolutely. Absolutely. You and I know very well things happen.
Things happen. We've both had physical issues. We've both had cancer. Cars break down. Kids get sick. Kids have to go to college. You can't live a rich life with $10,000 in the bank. So I really want women to get it that having wealth isn't a greedy thing. It's how you take good care of yourself.
It is. It is self-care. It is, I think, the showing up of how to teach other people that, I'm going to say it a couple ways. So I think is showing up and showing other people how you take care of you, which teaches them how to take care of you too. Model the respect and the behavior that you deserve. And that's it's so important as far as self-development. I think specifically for women, you know, the average age of average account for women in their 50s is about $10,000 total for their retirement even.
Okay.
So that's not enough to live off of. There are many things that come into play, just like you talked about life events. Actually, 90% of women will come into needing to manage their wealth at some point in their lifetime, whether it's because they inherit money from parents passing on, or a spouse passing on, or a divorce happening, right?
Hmm.
All of a sudden things are going beautiful. I was talking about it. I heard it this way, where you're riding off into the sunset and all of a sudden you're riding on the back of the horse, and all of a sudden you find that you've been bucked off that horse, right?
Hmm.
On the ride there. And that's no fun. So what can we do is, you know, really get educated. And I think words are super empowering. I was actually sharing with my goddaughter, who is learning to be an entrepreneur. She worked with me, you know, taking that leap to pay for virtual admins, or administrative assistants, is a leap and a commitment that you really now have a responsibility and ownership to somebody else. So that kind of puts you on a different platform, sometimes almost more than, well, actually, we should be paying ourselves first, right?
Well, it's like the difference between the chicken and the pig, and they're both asked to bring something to breakfast, right? Now, who's more committed? You know, the pig is actually more committed. So once you hire somebody, you're the pig. You're committed. You know.
Right? You're committed. Exactly. And so that is a driver in and of itself. So we have to like have come into play what is that true vision? What are we willing to commit? But sometimes it's just about, like you say, stepping out, and then that net will appear and it shows up. How we can get really good support about that, again, is we have so many resources. I'm going to say that you did not have 30 years ago. You know, now we have forums where you can go to meetups and meet other women that are doing coaching, or other women's group that can, in business, that can support one another. I mean, I run a couple at different ones. Wine Women Wealth is for women who really just need this languaging, and Leveled Up Ladies is for women in business that need other masterminding and how to support that. And then you've been, have come to those events to share your knowledge and impart that with women, because, you know, it's that rising tides raise all ships. And a
Mhm.
lot of these things seem so cliche. And I said, wow, you know, is the secret in the cliches that have been going on all along. And we just think they're cliches, but in reality, those words are so super powerful. Just like the words in your book, I've like mapped out a lot of what you said, you know, with the making your voice heard, your point known, your present felt. One of the things, the areas that I really, really liked was sticky situations,
Mhm.
right? So when we're talking about sticky situations, you know, you talked about the focus and turning things around. And really, really key, because I love that you're very tactful and direct.
Mhm.
And direct is a positive word, right? It's a good thing. But I think a lot of times when people uh, assign that word direct to women, it almost has a different connotation. Can you talk a little bit about your how to switch the sticky situations around tactfully?
Yeah, my working title for the book was The Nice Girl's Guide to Telling People to Go to Hell So They Look Forward to the Trip. Because that's really what women have to do, right? Men
Right.
don't have to do that, because you're right. It's a compliment to any man to say, yeah, he's really direct and straightforward. You
Yeah.
say about a woman, she's really direct and straightforward. And the meta message is maybe she's overly opinionated, she may be a bitch, she may be,
Yeah.
all kinds of things. And so the onus is really on us to be able to communicate in ways that that are direct and straightforward, but that people can still hear. And that's why I wanted to A, write this book, and B, have it be an audio book. Because actually, when I started writing it, Rita, I realized the words were not going to translate to the page.
Yeah.
And so I called the publisher back and I said, you know what? This can't be a print book. This has to be an audio book. And so, fortunately for me, they did put it out as an audiobook. So when I talk about sticky situations in the book, and let's use one around money. Okay, that
Mhm.
what the book does is the first part of the book provides about 10 or 12 tools for your toolkit that will help you communicate directly and in a straightforward way, but also without getting called a bitch. Okay, so it provides the tools. And then the rest of the book provides the tips for how do you employ them. Okay, or how do you apply
Okay.
them?
Okay.
So, let's take an example in a sticky situation of you were hired 6 months ago, and your boss said, when you negotiated for your salary, your boss said, well, let's see how you do first,
Mhm.
and then we'll talk about a raise, right?
Yep.
And so now it's been 6 months, and you're thinking, I've done everything I was assigned. I actually uh, surpassed my goals and went back and asked for more, right? So
Yep.
for some more things that I could do. And so you want to ask for a raise, but you don't want to be seen as greedy or needy.
Right.
And so that's a sticky situation. What I would do in that situation is I would apply a couple of the techniques. The first one being, it's called contrasting. Contrasting what I do want and what I don't want. Okay, so it would sound something like this. If you were my boss, Rita, I'd go to you and I'd say, Rita, I don't want you to think that I'm not grateful for the opportunity you've given me to work here, because I am. I've appreciated what you've done for me. I've appreciated the opportunities. I've appreciated getting to learn about the firm and your support for me. At the same time, I do need to talk to you about something that was promised to me, and that was an adjustment in my salary if I achieved my goals. Okay. Now, let me just stop right there for a second.
Mhm.
That's how you would start a conversation in a tricky situation. Contrasting what I do want or what I don't want and what I do want. I don't want you to think I'm not grateful. At the same time, I do need to talk to you about this. And you can hear how it kind of greases the skids, doesn't it?
I love it. I'm going to say, I wish. So in my corporate days, where were you for me?
Do you know how many people tell me that? It's like, where was it? Where were these books when I really needed them? As a matter of fact, I got an email, just as an aside, I got an email just yesterday from this woman in France who told me she read my book when it first came out in 2004. And
Wow.
she realized she was doing, and then she read Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. This one obviously has only been out for 6 months. But she said, I read Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. I realized all the things I was doing wrong, and I changed them. And she said she was working in a law firm. And she said, now I'm the co-director of the finance committee in this big law firm. And it's like just music to my ears, But
Wow.
that's what I mean about nobody will take better care of you than you'll take care of yourself. You need to step up. And by the way, while we're on this, none of my books suggest that you can't be nice and be successful.
That's right.
The nice girls titles don't mean you have to be mean and nasty. What they mean is that you can't be the nice little girl you were taught to be in childhood and expect to achieve your adult goals, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, okay. So those are a few asides there. And I know that's how I love talking to you, because you and I always take these, we go places. We
We
go
did go
places. Yeah. Um, so that's the first part. That's how I enter into the conversation of a sticky situation. And then what I do is I use headline communications to make my case. And in this case, I need to make it a business case, right?
Right.
And so a headline communication is making my main point, providing supporting information, and then using a tagline to invite the other person to speak up with me or to have a conversation with me. So in this case, it would be, so Rita, the reason why I believe that it's time for a salary adjustment is threefold. Number one, you told me if I met my goals, I'd get one. Not only have I met my goals, I've surpassed them. Number two, I have actually expanded my portfolio because as people came to know what I was capable of, they started giving me more things. So my portfolio is actually bigger, broader than what I was originally hired for. And number three, I did a little bit of research of this, the pay for this job in the general marketplace, and
Mhm.
it is about 15% higher. So those are the reasons why I believe it's time for me to get a salary adjustment. Is there any reason why we can't move forward with this?
I love it. It's beautiful because when I listen to you speak and I listen to it on the audio, I think of a few things. That's great for corporate, but even as an entrepreneur, you need to be having that conversation with you. You're your boss.
Yeah.
Why, right?
Yeah.
And why you really deserve to be making better and what steps. And it's borrowing that confidence, saying, hey, I have accomplished this. I have done this. These are the steps I'm going to take. And I get so excited about that. I almost get speechless, which is like very unusual for me, but, as you well know.
I can vouch for that.
I know, especially with, what, when we're in these amazing conversations, because people say to me, Rita, how do you do it? How do you get motivated? It's like this. This is just amazing, amazing information, because I'm going to say the devil's in these small little details or these nuances of the conversation. That's usually a little 1 degree shift from what you say. And then it's just practicing it and putting into practice it, and like really honoring yourself so that you continue to, it almost like this cycle of self-motivation, right, for the entrepreneur. And then, I'm going to say in my corporate days, the languaging to that versus, I'm going to say, contrasting language, which would be, well, you told me 3 months ago that, or 6 months ago, I would have a raise. Well, the example that you gave, I call those women's words of wealth and wisdom, right? Because those wise words and the way that you're saying it, and by the way, on paper, it wouldn't have come across the way you just said. So this is why the audible is so important.
Right, right, exactly.
Is the
You
tone, the inflection. It's also our body language, which you also talk about in the book.
right, exactly. And just going back for a second, even if it's the initial negotiation
Mhm.
for a salary, for a new job, women fall down with this all the time. Somebody offers them a job and offers them a salary, and they're afraid. This is the number one reason why women earn less than men, is because they're afraid to ask for more because they don't want to damage the relationship,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. 100%.
And if you use the contrasting, you don't have much chance of damaging the relationship. Now, if someone's going to be overly sensitive and say, the salary is the salary, take it or leave it, I have to say, do you want to work with that person anyway?
Right.
Right? I don't want to work for that kind of person.
Yeah.
But in an initial salary negotiation, you can even say something like, I'm delighted that you offered me this job because this is the company I want to work for. And now, with that said, I have done some research, and the salary is below what the going market is. And you wouldn't respect me, and I wouldn't respect myself if I didn't ask to at least be brought in at market. Now, that's how women have to negotiate. We have to do it differently because the rules are different for men and women.
And I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to stop it at this point because I think that's a really good point. I want people to think on that. It works that way with entrepreneurship and positioning your pricing. Very much the same, and honoring that. And our relationship with ourselves and our self-talk, our relationship with money, our relationship in this discussion are all tied together. Women do relationships differently. So I don't look at what you're saying as, oh gosh, women, we have to fight harder. We have to do more. No, we're just different. We just do it different because we already do things different. I'm going to say that's probably what makes men crazy about us, because We're really changing these rules a lot of the times, and we need to create parameters and boundaries, which your book completely, I'm going to say, defines with clarity for me. And I have a coach that, and a CEO that I follow that talks about it like an 8-lane highway. Now, there's an 8-lane highway; you can choose whichever lane, but you always need the guardrails because you don't want to go off either side.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What I'd like to do is I'm going to take a brief commercial or sponsorship commercial so that this way our amazing audience can hear from our wonderful sponsors, one of which is you, Dr. Lois, and then just come back and share. So we're just going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll see you in a minute. Let's see. So thank you, Lois. That was amazing, right? Because our voice, our presence, all of it counts. Every single one of us, no matter who we are, it counts.
Mm-hmm.
It's really sharing these messages. One of the things that you talked about also is, we're talking about relationships, and you talked a little bit about staying in touch with your feelings. And I really loved that because you talked about some key points about being humble.
Mm-hmm.
I love being curious because that's what got me to where I'm at right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of pushing the envelope, taking a little bit of the risk, stretching yourself. One of my favorite points was that I'm actually thinking of doing. You talked about lightening up and you talked about taking some classes. I want to hear a little bit about that because, I'm talking about feeling good about money. Feeling good about money starts with the relationship. It starts with the relationship about ourselves. So we need to feel good about ourselves. And what better way than to
Mm-hmm.
make it fun and have a little bit of maybe improv, or I'm going to say comedy. So tell me a little bit about that piece. I was intrigued.
Yeah, one of the things that women often say to me is, I wish I had you on my shoulder when I had to have a difficult conversation. It's one of the reasons why I wrote the book is because that's what people come up to me and say at the end. I wish I had you on my shoulder. And what they're really saying is, I don't think fast on my feet. Well, I'm here to tell women none of us think fast on our feet, especially when it's an emotional situation. But you used the word practice before. And the more you practice the tools that I have in the book, the more confident you will be to express yourself in almost any situation. It doesn't happen easy at first. So it may be that at first, you have to have a difficult conversation with someone about someone maybe who keeps cutting you off in a meeting. And you may not be able to do it in the moment, but you may go and think about it and say, what I should have told him was, well, it's never too late to go back and say that. And say, when I was in that meeting the other day, and I have a technique for that in the book too. And it's called the desk script. How do you script out a difficult conversation? So you can still go back and do that. But a lot of it is about staying in touch with your feelings, because many times what happens, we swallow them. And when we swallow them, all of a sudden we're feeling either depressed or discounted or disenfranchised, and we don't know why, but it's because we swallowed the feelings. So one of the recommendations that I give to women is that they join an improv class. Okay. Improv makes you think on your feet. It makes you get over those fears. It makes you be able to blurt out in real time whatever it is you're thinking. Now, I'm not saying we should all blurt out whatever we're thinking. You know, I had a 90 something year old aunt that used to do that regularly, and we were all always embarrassed. And I'm always afraid I'm going to become her, which is probably why I write books like this to remind myself not to.
Right.
But, but if you can do it in an improv class, then you can do it in a real life situation, with some tact and diplomacy by following the guidelines, by following the tools and the techniques that I provide. And it is another way of lightening up. You know, one of the things, Rita, that I say is, I was always, I see pictures of myself from when I worked at Arco. I was going through an album the other day. I don't know, somehow I came across these pictures. I thought, I was like the most serious young woman. I was just so sober and serious. Um, and I think when I went to work for myself, I think I probably was still sober and serious. But at some point, I had to learn that if I could be the best consultant out there, and I'm not saying that I was, but I could be, and people wouldn't hire me if they didn't like me. And so people are going to like you better when you do have some humility, when you do lighten up, when you do have a sense of humor, right? They're going to like you better. And the more people like you, the more likely they are to overlook when you make mistakes or when you need to have a difficult conversation. They're going to not say, oh, that's her always complaining. It's because they're going to like you. I used to have clients that said to me, I'm not here to win a popularity contest. And I always said, oh, yes, you are. Because if people don't like you, you can't do your job
Yeah.
as easily.
You know, you talked on one point about, I'm going to say, embracing vulnerability. I
Hmm.
find that when we do that and when we share, just like we're sharing today, whatever stories that we have and the commonalities that we have, it's in that vulnerability that really we're making the biggest connections with one another, which is
Hmm.
super amazing. Um, I'm trying to think. There was one other thing. So you were talking about focus.
Oh, 1 second, Rita,
Yeah.
because one thing that when you talk about vulnerability, the
Yes.
book I wish I wrote
Okay.
that I didn't, but
Okay.
Brene Brown did,
Ah,
was
yes.
the gifts of imperfection, right?
Yes.
And Brene Brown talks a lot about vulnerability, and she talks about vulnerability in leadership and how critical it is to be vulnerable. And so I agree with you there, and I really encourage people to read the Brene Brown works too.
Oh, I love Brene Brown and like Daring Greatly. And that's a book I'm going to read next because I saw about that. And I do find that when I connect and share with people the stories, I'm going to say the stories that were maybe my biggest trials are really like my biggest connectors, right?
Mm,
And just because I think because people know that I'm going to show up, I care. I've been through, I'm going to say, a multitude of experiences from my young age that, out of my own control, but it's also made me so much stronger because I look at it as a gift to connect when somebody else is in that situation because I've come on the other side. So that this way we can lead other women to lead really great lives, lead, be ordinary, but live extraordinarily happy lives.
mhm,
I'd
mhm.
like to find out a little bit more. What are you currently working on?
Oh, interesting. I'm working on a couple of things. First of all, one of the things I always wanted to do was be a photographer. A-
Oh,
And so, when COVID started and we had the lockdown here in California, all of my keynote business obviously dried up. I couldn't do any keynotes. I couldn't travel. And that's really what I was doing for a living.
mhm.
And so I thought, well, what better opportunity to do the things that I never had a chance to do? And so I started taking photography classes and practicing, and I got a tutor for certain aspects of my photography and Photoshop, and just going out with my camera as often as I can, taking pictures. And so that's one of the things that I'm working on. And I love my little puppy. And so one of the things I do is I take pictures of the neighborhood dogs, and I have a website, and it's called Thank Dog for You.
That's so
And
cute.
I
I
have
love it.
pictures of all the dogs on the website. It's called Thank Dog for You.
Oh,
Um,
good.
so I'm doing that. A second thing I'm doing is, and I was doing this before COVID hit, is I was training to be a docent at the Gamble House
Oh,
here in Pasadena, which
nice.
is one of the best preserved green and green pieces of architecture in our country. It's from the arts and crafts movement. And it used to be the home of David and Mary Gamble from Procter and Gamble. It was their winter home.
Okay.
And
Oh,
so it's a beautiful, beautiful home, and I've just always admired it. And when I heard they were looking for docents, I thought, oh, I could do that on weekends. So anyway, so I'm still in training for that, just doing it virtually. And then the third thing that I'm doing is one of the things that I want to do is get more women elected to political office. I don't think things in this country are going to change significantly until we have more women in Washington.
right.
You said it earlier. Women are different. Women have different ways of being in the world. We have different ways of leading. We have different ways of communicating. I'm not saying we have better ways, but I am saying that the ways we do it are not currently in Washington. And until they are, you are going to continue to see an impasse. For example, and I just have to get political for a second here, because I cannot imagine any woman saying that if a Supreme Court position was open at the end of Donald Trump's presidency, they would not fill it. And then lying about it
Mm,
to say, oh, no, I did say that, but now I'm taking it back.
mm,
Now, we have so many people in Washington who said exactly that, that no, you know what, if there's an opening, I will not vote to fill it. And now they're saying, you know what, I said it then, but I don't mean it now. No woman would do that.
right.
We would not do that
No.
because we have different values.
It's,
And so
oh,
one of the things I want to do is get that's my thing today. One of the things that I want to do is get more women elected to public office so that we can have sanity back in our country. And so I coach any woman who wants to, is thinking about running for office, in communication techniques.
wow, that's wonderful. I think that's super amazing. I agree that there's a balance for everything. Like when I do my workshops or my events for women, the events are men exclusive. So, you guys, we love you. I love you. Actually, in those events, it's not about teaching the women to be against men, but it's actually learning what men do that women need to implement into their lives, and then
Mhm.
taking what we do, and it literally is just this blending, so that we get this even keel balance, so that we're hand in hand together
Yeah,
in
the
this.
best of both.
The best of both worlds. That's really what it's about. It's not one against another. It's together we stand, right? This is a
Yes,
united nation, right? We're the
right.
United States of America. Let's start acting like it. Let's look at the best attributes. I used to tease, I don't do it anymore. My kids, I'm like, God, you got the worst attributes from both your parents, meaning my husband and I. Now I'm like, no, let's change that story. Wow, you got the best attributes. Let's look and focus on the values. You just said that. That's so key. I think
Yeah.
learning about money and wealth and the words that we use and the words that you're empowering with are about our focus and our values. Go ahead, and I can hear that you want to say something about that. So please.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I actually wasn't going to say something, but now that you threw the ball to me,
Sure.
um, what I think is that that's another thing that women have to see is that acquiring wealth is not about selfishness. I mean, I can tell you, the more wealth I acquired, the more I could give away. And for me, that's leading with my values, right?
Absolutely.
If I just
Absolutely.
had wealth, but I didn't have the values, I think I'd live a pretty selfish life. But
Right.
but for me, my values mean that to much whom much is given, those whom much is given, much is expected. And
That's such a
so,
nice-
yeah, and so that, it's important for me to give as good as I get.
And I'm going to say, this brings me to a point as we're coming down the wire here tonight, um, of what your out of all your many accomplishments. I'm going to say in your giving back, in my giving back, that's how we connected on a
Mhm.
value system. So tell me about your two biggest accomplishments that speak to your heart.
Yeah, I always say I'm proud of all my accomplishments, obviously, but I'm probably most proud of having founded two nonprofit organizations. The first one I founded in 1980, so it's been 40 years. Yeah, and it's called Motivating Your Students Through Experience, and it was when I was working at Arco, and what I realized was if we wanted to have future generations of a workplace that looked like our community, instead of just looking predominantly white and male, we had to take young women and keep them in school, keep them off drugs, keep them not pregnant, or
Mhm.
prevent them from getting pregnant, and get them into college. So what I did was I started a mentoring program that paired working women with girls from inner city schools.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and that program is still going on today. And one of the women that I'm coaching right now is a young woman who um, she was one of the first students in the program,
Oh my God, that's amazing.
and she's running for city council in Montebello.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so that I'm very proud of. And then the second one is this is where you and I met was after my own challenge with cancer. I realized that there were a lot of women who weren't as fortunate as I was to have good insurance, a good support system, my own business, so it didn't matter if I missed work. These were women who, for whom even one missed day of work meant they couldn't pay the rent, couldn't pay utilities, and so that's when I founded an organization called Bloom Again. And Bloom Again provides rapid response financial assistance to working women who live at the poverty level when they have a medical challenge that causes them to miss work. And I know I'm no longer on that board, but you're on that board and you're continuing to do good work for Bloom Again Foundation. And that's where we met.
And that's where we met in October 25th. Go to bloomagainfoundation.org, and check out October 25th and special events coming up so that we can change lives, really change the lives of these women. But more importantly, it's actually the ripple effect of changing the lives for their children, their families, to know that people care and really just do it in such a way. I'm going to say that it leaves without question knowing that we're doing the right thing, the right way, and with the right processes and the right people for the right people. It's just the most beautiful thing. So I'm blessed to have met you and known about, Bloom Again and actually all of your endeavors. It's really, truly, truly inspiring. I want everybody to be sure to get their nice girls don't speak up or stand out book. You mentioned that you might be giving something to my guests. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. What I did, because I know sometimes it's hard to just listen to a book and then kind of have all the key takeaways. So I created a companion workbook. And if you buy the book and go on to Amazon or wherever you buy it and write a review, and then just let me know, I will go ahead and I'll send you the free companion workbook. And that's all you have to do.
Beautiful. I want to say thank you so much for being here tonight. What's the best way for people to reach you, Lois?
Through my website, Dr.
Through
Lois, yeah, it's drloisfrankel.com, DRLOISFRANKEL.com.
Perfect. And there it is on the bottom.
There it
So
is.
please check that out. This is a great gift for young women, really, again, to change. I say to change how wealth is done today and for generations to come. When we change those words, when we bring that positivity, when we bring the clarity in these, are we conversing or are we talking? These sticky situations, our focus, our present, it changes everything. And, I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you directly and indirectly, and in supporting how women can be empowered, get ahead, so that we can change how things are being done. I'm going to do a quick mention. You said something about paying more, right? You're paying more to somebody, your agents. You're taking less, but in essence, you were making more because of your focus. So look at that. That's really comes from I'm going to say a woman's mindset of taking care of the village, making sure they're supported, taking what we need for essentials to make sure that we're taken care of. But and in the end, we are exponentially making more because of the way that structure works. So I want everybody to think about that. That's genius. I'm seeing that happen more and more. Why? Because we have amazing role models like Dr. Lois Frankel
Thank you.
leading and paving the way. So thank you so much for being here tonight and
My
sharing
pleasure.
all this news. And again, if you need to reach out and you need to know more, feel free to reach out to me, Mama Rita Money. My website's there. It's MAMMARITAMONEY. So because it's mama for an Italian mama, spilling over with lots of love for all her children in the world, is really what I feel. I feel like, you know what, Lois, thank you for this. A blessed mama in every way, shape, and form. So we get to bless others. Thank you for being the blessing. And I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you so much.